Hello everybody and welcome back, and let us continue on coding our SSH login.py. So in the previous video we actually started with our main function. We actually specify the host, the username and the password. Now all we have to do is code this connect function right here, and we need to code this send command so we can actually retrieve the output of this command. So let us see how we can do that. First of all, let us start by coding the connect function since it is more complicated and since we actually use it first. So let us go up here. We'll need to call it the same. So connect. It takes an input of user, host, and password. And first of all, if you noticed, once we actually try to connect with the SSH to the Metasploit, it asks us, are you sure you want to continue connecting? That was the part where I told you this could present a problem to us, since that string could actually potentially ruin our program if we do not include it in our login SSH. So let us call that SSH_new key. We will need to name it the same as it is. So it was something like, are you sure you want to continue connecting? So if we receive this string, and we will receive this string, what we want to do is we want to expect this to come to us, and then once it comes to us, we will just send yes. So we will send to the target yes, so it proceeds to actually giving us the input for the username and password. Let us continue. We can just use the const string, which we will receive, so that will be SSH. This is something that we are using. So this is the same string that we used once we actually ran it in terminal. So as you remember SSH, then we had to type msfadmin, so we will just type here plus user, since the user variable is already specified to be the msfadmin. So the user variable, and then plus the @ so @ is a must, you need to have it, and then the IP address of the target, which is in our case host. So this is basically this command right here, which we ran, ssh msfadmin 192.168.1.5. If you run this in terminal, it will prompt you for username and password right after this string right here, which we specified. So right now, what we want to do is actually we want to spawn this or run this string, so we can do that with the child command. So the child, what this will be is pexpect. This is where we use our library, and we expect to spawn this const string, which is this value right here, which is our command in order to connect to the SSH on our Metasploitable. Now, what we return, or receive, let us see what we can return from that. Return, we will just call it ret. We just type here child.expect. So this is something that we will actually expect from the target to send us back. We can use the pexpect.timeout. We can use the SSH new key, since the SSH new key is something that we expect right after we try to connect. As you remember, first thing that popped up was the are you sure you want to continue connecting? And we after that are prompted with the password, which can either be capital P or not capital P, so we will specify both of them. We do that with this, so first capital P, capital P, then this pipe right here, then the small letter P. Then we close the brackets right here, and we can continue with password. So you just press the two dots right here, and this will actually just specify whether or basically expect either the password with capital P or password without the capital P. So let us close this as a string and close the square brackets from this part right here. So don't get confused, since I almost got confused why was this in brackets and this wasn't. But this square bracket right here is referring to this square bracket right here. And we also need to close this normal bracket at the end. So let me just close that one as well, like this. And after that, we want to check whether the return value, since what we get from this command right here is either a 1 or a 0. If we retrieve a 0 and the return or the ret command or variable, pardon me, is 0, that means we weren't able to connect. If it is 1, that means we are able to connect, and we are prompted this line right here. So if we are prompted this line right here, we want to send yes to the target, so it actually goes to the next step. So let us see how we can do that. We just type right here, if ret equals to 0, we will print, so minus error connecting. And we will return from this function. If ret is equal to 1, we will actually send to our SSH, which is our child, we will send the yes answer to this question. So child, we can do that with the command or function send line, and all we have to do is specify in brackets the string we want to send. In our case, that is yes. So once we send that, we want to actually expect this password to come up, so we will type it right here. Return is now equal to child.expect pexpect, oops, this is so hard to write, pexpect.timeout, and then here we will specify the same thing as here. So let me just copy it so I don't actually write it twice. Here it is. We expect the password field to get prompted to us, and we close these brackets right here. If right now the ret is equal to 0, we want to also close the program. So we will just print once again, error on connecting. Since if this ret right here is also equal to 0, that means something went wrong and we can't connect to the target. Since almost always you will receive this after the question, are you sure you want to connect or to continue connecting? Error connecting. We close the string and we return. But in case that it isn't zeroed and that is number 1, so we want to send the password. Since we get prompted to enter the password, right now we want to child.sendLine password, which is this variable right here. And we want to basically expect some kind of a prompt from the SSH. Now that prompt can either be a $sign, an arrow, 3 arrows, a hashtag, it doesn't even matter, we will just expect any of that. What we will do, we will create a global variable with a list from all the things we can expect. So first of all, let me just type child.expect, and we want to actually expect a prompt. And what prompt is something that we didn't create yet, so here it is. Prompt will be a global list which will actually hold most of the things that we can actually expect. So something like this, a single arrow, $$sign. Make sure to leave space on all of them, so just like this. Now let's close this list, and we will expect to get prompted anything like this, which will basically mean that we successfully logged into the target, since we sent a password and we got our terminal back from that target. So right after that, what we want to do, if we expect that and we receive that, all we want to do is return the child, which is our SSH connection. Right after that, in our main function, we will actually send command to that child, which will actually gather the password from our root user. Now this send command we will code in the next lecture, as well as we will test our SSH login.py program. So hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I hope I see you in the next one. Bye! Hello everybody, and welcome back, and let us finish our SSH login program so we can actually successfully log into our Metasploit framework machine, or pardon me, Metasploitable, and actually execute the cat at cshadow command. We want to grab for the root password, and we also want to run some other command in order to see if we can run multiple commands with our program. So let us navigate to our Python programs, sshftp. There I have my ssh login.py, and let me just zoom this in so you can see everything better. Okay, let's nano ssh login.py. And all the thing we have to do right now, since in the previous video we coded the connect function, which should successfully connect to the target, right now what we want to do is actually code a function that will send the command of grabbing the root password from that target system. So we are expecting prompt right now, as we can see in our connect command, we are expecting prompt, and as soon as we get the prompted, that means that we logged in successfully, we return the connection from our SSH shell, and right now we want to code this function right here, which is send command. We want to send to the target system or target connection, which is this child variable right here, and this is the command that we want to execute. So our send command function should take 2 arguments. One of them is the basically the connection, or basically the child, and the other one is the command that we want to execute. So let us go up here. Let's make def send command. Once again, make sure that it is named the same as in your main function. It takes an input from the, now we can put here anything we want. So let's say connection, and it takes the command. So this is our function. Let me just not forget these two dots at the end. And all we have to do right now is basically just connection dot send line command. This is all we have to do in order to send to the target the command. Let me just fix this since there is no G at the end of the connection. And all we want to do is expect the prompt once again, since after the command has been executed, we will get another prompt back. So child.expect prompt. And what we want to print is print, or not child, child is our variable, we need to actually type here connection, or maybe it is easier if we change this to child, so you don't get confused. Basically the child and the connection is the same thing. So let us switch all of this to child, so you don't get multiple variables right here, and let us print child.before. What this will do is this will print the output of our command that we executed on target system. So let us go to the main function once again. We set the host to be the IP address of a Metasploitable, which I will run right now. So go, if you don't have it running at the moment, just go onto your VirtualBox, start the Metasploitable. Right now I will check if it is still the 192.168.1.5. But we don't really need to have this. We can actually prompt the user to enter the name for that host that they want to scan. So raw underscore input. We already know what this function does. We want to enter the host to target. So we can use something like that. We can even prompt this for the user. So raw input, enter SSH username. And we can prompt for the password. So basically raw underscore input, enter SSH password. So we prompt the users for everything. So this doesn't actually target only one target, which is in our case Metasploitable. So users can actually specify any host they want to scan. Let me just go right here, log into my Metasploitable, MSF-admin, and MSF-admin. I check the IP address of our Metasploitable. It is .1.6. So it did change from the previous video. Let me save this, and let's actually try to run this program right after we make it an executable with the chmod +x. So ssh login.py. And right now, if I run this, we get the question to enter the host target. So 192.168.1.6. Of course, don't put the same IP address right here. Check the IP address of your Metasploitable on your system. So once you specify this, press enter. The username is MSF-admin and the password is MSF-admin. Right now, we let this run, and we can see that we actually get the command to be permission denied. So what does this mean? This means that this user, MSF-admin, doesn't really have the permission to actually access that file that stores root password. Now, this can be something that can happen if you basically brute force or log in or hack a non-root account on the SSH. You will not be able to get the permission to run this cat @c shadow command. But let me show you how it looks like once we actually can get that. So I have another virtual machine right here, which is the OS virtual machine, I believe. Let me just check this out. Now you don't need to install it really. It's basically almost the same as the Metasploitable. If we do need it, however, later on I will show you how you can install it, but for now on we really don't need it. The SSH is basically something that you can brute force on any target system that has port 22 open. So right now, since I know the credentials for the root account for the OS virtual machine, so let me just see, failed to open a session. Okay, so let me just run a different one instead. Since I have a bunch of the machines right here, I can just run any of them and see if we can actually get the root password from that machine. So for some reason, those machines are not running. Failed to open session, details. Okay, doesn't really matter. What matters is if you actually log into the root account from any SSH target, you will be able to execute the cat @c shadow, which will actually get you the root password for the root account. But let's see what else we can actually execute if we go to our ssh login.py. Let's actually execute something that we can, which would be to, for example, let me just remove the grep root. Let's try to ls what's in that directory that we log in. So if we just specify everything once again, so .1.6, MSF-admin, MSF-admin, we can see that the only directory in that target is the vulnerable directory, which really is the directory on our metasploitable. So if you just type here ls on my metasploitable, you can see there is vulnerable right here as well as here. So we successfully coded a program that can actually log into the SSH and execute some of the commands and bring the output of those commands back to us. Now what we want to do is actually try to make this an attack. So let us actually in the next videos try to make an SSH brute forcer, which will execute a bunch of the connection tries with different passwords and see if it can brute force the SSH account. So that will be about it for this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope I see you in the next one where we will start our SSH brute forcer. Hope I see you there, and take care. Bye. Hello everybody, and welcome back. And right now in this video we will start off by coding our brute forcer for the SSH. Now in the previous videos we managed to code the SSH login program, which will just perform the login process onto the SSH on a certain target, and it will try to execute some of the commands. We noticed that we cannot execute the cat_etc shadow command on the target system since we didn't log in into the root account. But if you, for example, find out the root passwords for some target and manage to log in, you will be able to execute the cat_etc shadow command and get the root hashed password. But right now, let's see what we can do in order to make this program a brute forcer instead of just a simple login program. So let's see first of all what we don't need to change in this program in order to make it. We know that the connect function will always be the same, so we can just copy this function. Let me just copy it. Since we don't really need to change anything right here for now, maybe there will be some minor changes to this, but maybe not even that. So for now, let us just nano brute ssh.py. We'll add our standard line, which is user bin python. And what we want to do is first of all import the same library as in the previous video, so pexpect. And basically just paste the function, which is the connect function. Now, the reason why we are just using this function is because this connect function will work, it's basically the same for every SSH, so if we don't really want to change it, we only want to use it, we already coded it, so there is really no point in us coding it once again. So all we have to do right now is code our main function, which will actually take the brute forcing process. So let us code it def main. We code our main function. We will select the host to be raw input, so we will prompt the users to enter the host IP address. So 192.168.1, oops, not that, enter IP address of target to brute force. We close the double quotes, we close the brackets. We will prompt them for the user. So for example, if they want to brute force the user, they can do that. So let's type here user equals raw input, enter user account you want to brute force. And the password is something that we will actually try with multiple different passwords. So we will need a password file, which will contain multiple passwords which we want to use in order to brute force the account. So let us first of all make that file. Since we don't have it, we'll just make a simple nano passwords.txt. And there we will, for the purpose of this tutorial, add the msfadmin as a password, so we actually see that this program will work after we've continued coding it. So in order to do that, let us just type here some random password. So administrator, admin123, password 123, msfadmin, and hello world, for example. So we just leave this on this. We save this. We know that this is the correct password for our metasploitable machine. So let us save this and exit and go back to our brute force SSH. So we prompt the users for the username and the IP address of the host, and all we want to do is open the file. So we will open the file which contains our passwords in order to read from that file and in order to brute force the account with those passwords. So in order to open the file, you just type here any variable, in case I will name it file right now, and to open a file we use simple open command and then the file name between the quotes. So passwords.txt. We can use single quotes, no need to use double quotes. So this is the name of your file. If you named it the same as I did, so if you named it differently, make sure to specify a different name right here. And all we have to do right now, put a comma and select the mode that we want to use, which in our case is just reading from that file. Right now, what we want to do is actually just make a loop which will go through this password file and read every password line by line. So in order to do that, we can just use for password So for a single password in our file.readlines, now we used this readlines function before. It basically just reads a single line or a line by line from this file. Now what we want to do for each password is actually try to perform the connect function. So we will use our child once again as a variable equals connect, which is this function right here. And all we have to do is pass this host and user variable and the password variable to the target, or pardon me, to the function. So connect, we want to specify the user since this is the first argument in our function, then the host, and then the password which we read from the password file. So password, and close the brackets. So we will perform this function, and if it manages to connect, we will get the child back. So what we want to do is, if this function works correctly, or everything is executed in this function, we want to actually print that we found the password. Since if it connects correctly, that means that we found the successful password for this account, and we can print that we found that password. So print password found, and we can concat this with the password itself. Now, for example, we can now in the except make the password not found, so this is the incorrect password, print with the minus, wrong password, and we concat the password to that. So let's see what our program actually does. So it reads the password, it tries to perform the connect function with that password. If it manages to perform that function, that means that we found the password, so we will print password found. In any other case, if it doesn't manage to connect to that target, we will print wrong password, and we will continue to the next password in the passwords.txt file. So let us see what we can do right now. Everything right here should be good. Let's just call the main function in order to check if this will work. So we will just call it like this, save this program. Let's make it an executable, so root SSH, and let's run the program. Enter IP address of target to brute force 192.168.1.6. The user account we want to brute force is the MSF admin. And as we can see, it didn't manage to find the correct password. Now let's see why is that. So let us nano the file. As you can see right here, it said that all of these passwords are wrong passwords, which is not correct. We know that this password right here is correct password, so we might need to do some minor changes to this in order to make it work. First of all, what we want to do is, first of all, to make sure that our passwords are printed out as they should be. So let us print the password. Let me just find where is the, oops, I nano the wrong file. I need to nano the brute force file, so nano brute ssh.py. And for password in file.readlines, we want to just print password. So let us put this all under the hashtag, so we can just print the passwords from now on, so we can actually see what is wrong with this program. It doesn't even matter what the IP address is, so we can just print the passwords, and we can see that the reason could probably be because these passwords have a new line character right after that. So in order to change that, we need to strip the new line character from each of these passwords. As you can see, once it prints them, it leaves an empty space below each password. So let us see how we can fix that. SSH log, oops, once again I nanoed the wrong file. Let us go right here. Print the password. For password in file.readlines, we want to make password equals password.strip, and then we will add the new line character, which is the \n. So we strip the password from that new line character, and let's right now save this and try to print once again. 192.168.1.6, which is not really necessary right now. And right now we get the passwords printed out as we should. So let us try to brute force once again and see if it will work right now. All we have to do is hashtag this print password, or we can just delete it. We don't really need to print that. And we want to remove the hashtags from all of these lines. So right now, let us see how this will work. If we run the program once again, we enter the correct IP address, 1.6. We enter the user account, MSF admin, wrong password, and it still didn't manage to find the MSF admin password as a correct password. So that is a problem that I didn't encounter before, but I believe I have a few ideas why is that like this, but I will show that in the next video so we don't waste too much of our time fixing the program. I will just fix it by myself and then I will tell you what the problem was and how we can fix it. So hope you enjoyed this video and I hope I see you in the next one. Bye! Hello everybody and welcome back, and let us actually see what was the problem in our bruteforce.sh.py file. So I found out what the problem was, and the problem was that this actually performed the brute force function relatively fast, and that's why I didn't even have enough time to perform the connection fully, or should I say it didn't perform the connection till the very end. So in order to do that, what we want to do is add a timeout. So this doesn't perform this fast. We want to add a timeout, but we do not want to add too big of a timeout, since then it will brute force one password per every 3 seconds. So we want to add a timeout, for example, 1 second or half a second. And the part where we actually want to add that timeout is the child.expectPrompt. So go down here, and all we want to do is add a comma right here. So this is the part where it can actually perform the part of this function really slow. So it actually depends from the target as well, how fast it will give us the prompt for the SSH. It actually depends from our speed of the internet as well. So we want to give a certain timeout so this can actually have enough time to prompt us back with our prompt. Now there is also one more thing that we missed, which is the prompt itself. We didn't copy it, we just copied the function, so we need to copy the prompt itself. But first of all, let's add the timeout right here to be 0.5 seconds, which I believe should be enough. If it is not, we will change that. And we need to add the prompt as in the ssh.login.py file. We need to add the prompt from the strings that we actually want to get from the target. So we add this. Let us just copy it from the previous program, so I don't actually spend time writing that. So I will just copy this part right here. This is the prompt that we expect, nano debrute SSH, and I will paste it right here. So I paste this right here. We have the timeout, and right now, if I just try to run the program once again, so SSH brute force SSH, we enter the IP address of our exploitable. The user account will be msfadmin. And let's see, so wrong password, and we get the password found. So right now we successfully coded the brute forcer, as we can see that it found the password, which was the correct one, which is the msfadmin. And let's see how fast we can make this go. Since our timeout is 0.5 seconds, let's see if we can actually make this go a little bit faster if we make a timeout, or if we actually remove the timeout. So let's nano the brute force.sh. We will remove the timeout to see if it will go any faster, and if it does go faster, if it finds our password. So 192.168.1.6, msfadmin, enter user account you want to brute force. For some reason right now this isn't working, but that's why I said that we need to use the actual timeout. So let us actually add it back. Obviously we can't go without it, so let us add it to be 0.5 seconds. It goes relatively fast even with the timeout being 0.5 seconds. So we can actually use this as a program, as a brute forcer, so it is relatively fast. msfadmin. So another thing you can actually do is try to make a threaded version of this program, so it actually runs every password brute force on a single thread simultaneously. So that is another option you can do. Right now, let us see what else we can add to our brute forcer. So first of all, we can actually try to execute the command once we find the right password. So you can try to execute the cat shadow command if you want to, if you are brute forcing our root account, or we can just try to test it out if we are able to even execute the command right after we find the password. So how we can do that? We can actually first copy the send command function from our ssh.login.py, which is right here. So just select this function right here, since we don't really need to code it twice. We go to our brute force ssh.py and we add our send function right here. So here it is. All we want to do is see where we can actually add that function and what we can execute. So let's see right here. So we try to connect. If we connect, we print that the password was found. And right after that, we can actually execute the command to target system. So send command. We see what arguments that command takes. So it takes the child and the command. We can just paste this child to the send command function. And also we want to send the command, for example, let that command be pwd, so print working directory, or who am I, it doesn't even matter. You can try to execute any command you want. For now on, we just want to see if this will work. So let's press this enter. Let's enter the IP address, so 192.168.1.6, msfadmin. We start the brute forcer. It found the password and it also executed the command, which is the who am I, msfadmin, and we got the prompted back with our terminal output. So here is it, who am I, the command is the output is msfadmin. So if we check that on our metasploitable, you can see if I just type who am I, we can see we get the msfadmin. So this works correctly. But right now we can actually try to add a little bit of a color to our program. So we did that in the previous videos. Right now we will import a term color library. So import colored, which will allow us to print incorrect passwords in red and correct passwords in green. So you know that in order to do this, we need to actually have the Python 3 library, and in order to have Python 3 library and this program to work, we need to change every print statement and every raw input statement in order to match the Python 3 syntax. So print statements should be something like this, and we add the colored function, we open another bracket, and then right after here what we want to do is set a comma and print that in green, since this is the password found. We close the two brackets, and we want to do the same here, so red password when it is incorrect should be printed out in red. And right here we want to print the open bracket, colored, open another bracket, and then leave this like this. Also we want to change the raw input into just input, so just delete the raw underscore, delete right here the raw underscore, and save this. Also here are two print statements which we need to change as well. Error connecting, we need to set that between the brackets, and here as well error connecting needs to be set between the brackets. Let me just see if that's it. So let us try to run this. Python 3 bruteforce.sh, print child before. So we also need to menu that. So print child before needs to be in the brackets as well. And also let's actually remove this end command, since we don't really need that. We just want to make a brute forcer. So let's see if now it should work. No module named pexpect. So Python 3 doesn't seem to actually have the pexpect. Okay, so no module named pexpect. Let's see if we can install it for Python 3. In order to install it, you can just type pip3 install Python 3. Oops, not Python 3. Pexpect. So let's try that one. Now, we might not even have the pip3 installed, I'm not really sure. But we can try to, if this doesn't work, it doesn't really matter. What does matter is that our brute forcer does work. It can find the right password for the SSH account. It can brute force relatively fast, and we actually can attack a single target with a good password list. Such, for example, is those password lists with 10,000 most used SSH passwords, which you can use in order to test on some target that you have permission to scan on. So we successfully downloaded the pexpect library. Now let's try to import it in Python 3 to see if it worked. Pexpect. So it works like now. Let us run the brute ssh.py. Enter IP address of the target to brute force 192.168.1.6. Enter user account you want to brute force msfadmin. So wrong password. Let's see if it will find it, and we can see our program works. We found the correct password. We printed it out in green. It is easily noticeable, and our brute forcer is now complete. So hope you enjoyed this video. And I hope I see you in the next one, where we will actually start coding some of the FTP attacks. So hope you enjoyed this, and I hope I see you in the next lecture. Bye. Hello everybody, and welcome back to the next lecture. And right now, let us start off by a simple FTP attack. So we in the previous videos coded some of the SSH tools, such as the brute forcer for the SSH. We managed to attack the target with our simple passwords.txt file, and we managed to find the correct password. Right now, what we want to do is try to code something similar for the FTP. So we know that our metasploitable is running FTP port open. So if I just run nmap of our metasploitable, which is now 192.168.1.6, not 16, 6, and I run this, you can see that it has the port 21 TCP open. FTP open. So this is a really common port to be open on many servers. Now, one of the main vulnerabilities right here is that this is not really secured, which I will show in some of the next lectures. By secured, I mean these credentials for this. So if I FTP the target, FTP 192.168.1.6, apparently we do not have the FTP right here. Apt install FTP. Not really sure if this is possible, so we are installing FTP in order to perform the FTP connection to the target. What I was saying is that these credentials from the target, since we will have to specify the username and password for the FTP port, can easily be sniffed on a local network. So they are unencrypted, they go literally just in plain text, and you can pick them up if you are sniffing on the local area connection, which I will show you once we get to the section where we actually attack our local network with sniffing packets and sniffing passwords and so on. But for now, let us see how we can actually log in to the FTP with our FTP brute forcer. But before we code the FTP brute forcer, I want to show you a simple attack, which is called FTP anonymous login. Now, some of these server admins allow other users to perform anonymous login in order to check some files. So we can easily write a simple program which will do the same. So we will try to anonymously connect with just a non-existent username and password, and we will see if that will work. But first of all, let me see if right now, if I go and type the FTP, which I would do if my terminal worked. So let me just... Whoops, not here. I want to go to my Kali Linux machine, clear the screen, and try to FTP to my Metasploitable machine, which is 192.168.1.6. We get the connected to this IP address. We get the version of FTP running, which is a vulnerable version. So I know that because of the there is in the Metasploit there is a module that actually exploits this. So you can check it out by yourself if you want to. For now on, it's just good to know that it is a vulnerable version, but not to this attack. I believe we will not be able to anonymously log in, but I just want to show you, since there are a lot of servers or administrator of servers that actually allow this to be used on their FTP. So right here, we need to specify the name. I'm not really sure. I believe it is msfadmin. Please specify the password, msfadmin. And we can see login successful, remote system type is Unix, using binary mode to transfer files. So we know that the username and password for the Metasploitable is msfadmin and msfadmin, but let's see that we don't really know that. We will try to brute force with a password list the same for the SSH. Just right now, we will brute force the FTP port. So let us see how we can do that. In order to exit this, just type here exit. Now let us first of all nano our anonymous login ftp.py. So nano. Let's call it anon login ftp.py. We want to start off with our user bin Python line, and all we have to do right now is to import a library which will allow us to perform the connection to FTP more easily, which is the library ftplib. So this is the name of the library. We can import it. I'm not really sure if it comes for Python 2 or Python 3. If it doesn't come for Python 3, we will pip3 install it. Don't worry. And all we have to do right now is actually let's first of all prompt the user for the host to actually attack, which will prompt with the enter the IP address. Whoops. So we'll prompt the user, and let's actually run a function anon login on our host. So this function doesn't exist. We will code it right now. This is our simple, you can call it a main function, even though it is outside any function. We will not put it anywhere. We will just code the anon login. So def anon login, and we will specify that the argument for that function is the host name, since we specify the host in the argument bracket. So host name. And what we will try to do is actually just perform a simple connection to the FTP with some random username and password. So we will try to actually make an FTP variable to be ftplib.ftp of this host name. This is just the syntax for this library that we imported. And all we want to do is perform the login function that our FTP library allows us. So FTP login, in the function all we need to specify is the username and password. So we can just type here anonymous. And we can just type here anonymous as well. Doesn't really matter. We can specify anything we want, since this is really random. And all we want to type right here is print if this manages to actually execute and we manage to log in with these credentials, which we probably won't, since I don't think Metasploitable is actually allowing the anonymous FTP login. But we will see in just a second. Let us first of all print the, for example, plus string of our host name. or actually our hostname is a string, so we don't need this string before that. So plus hostname, let's make a space between this, and we want to plus FTP anonymous logon succeeded. So we put a dot right here, we close this, and we want to FTP quit in order to exit the FTP connection, and we will return true, as this did work. So if this works, we will get this printed out, and we will know that the anonymous login is enabled on the target system. If it doesn't, however, we will just expect any error, so we can just do exception, comma E, which stands for basically any error that occurs during this connection try. We want to just print, oops, let's use the double quotes, since we use the double quotes in the upper part, plus hostname, plus FTP anonymous logon failed. So this is basically the entire program. As we can see right here, what we are doing is just trying to connect to the target with some random credentials. If that manages to actually work, we will print that anonymous login succeeded. If it doesn't and we get some error, we will print that it failed. So let us see how this will work. If we save this program, Ctrl X to exit, we chmod it in order to make it an executable. Let's run it right now, and let's see, enter the IP address 192.168.1.6. We let this run, so it says FTP anonymous logon failed. So we can see that the metasploitable target doesn't have the anonymous logging option available. So that is good for every server, since there are a bunch of other attacks that can open up if this is actually available on some server over FTP. But trust me, there are a lot of servers that actually allow this for some reason. Let me just fix this, since here we don't have a space. Let's specify space right here. So FTP or anon login FTP. Let's specify just a space right here, and that would be about it. So this is our anonymous login program, which works, I believe. Now all we have to do is test it on some of the... Now all you have to do is actually do multiple tests, multiple attacks on FTP servers, and you will manage to find sometime a server that actually allows this, which can potentially allow you to proceed with the further attacks. But from now on, in the next video, we will code a much more common attack, or something that we can do on any FTP server, which is basically to brute force the credentials in order to log in over FTP with the correct credentials. So we will do that in the next video. Hope you enjoyed this one, and I hope I see you in the next one. Bye. Hello everybody, and welcome back to this tutorial where we will code our FTP brute forcer. So let us first of all think what we need to do in order to do that. Now it is very simple. It is very similar to the SSH brute forcer. All we need to do is specify a list of passwords, or basically our password list file, which we will use the same one as we used in the SSH brute forcer. So we'll use this same passwords.txt file. So if you don't have it, make sure to create it. Let me just nano it so you can see which passwords are here. So we have some random passwords, which is, for example, admin123 password and so on, and the correct password, which is msfadmin. Now then all we want to do is use the FTP lib library in order to perform the connection with a certain username and a certain password. Now in order to make this even better, we can try to actually brute force with both of the usernames and both of the passwords. Now what I mean by that is we will not prompt the user to actually specify a username or password for that account, for that FTP account. We will actually make a passwords.txt file which will contain both users and both passwords, separated by 2 dots. Now this is a very common password file, so you can find a bunch of password lists like this online that contain both user and password separated by 2 dots. It looks something like this. So admin 2 dots administrator. Then we can use some numbers. We can add right here password. We can add right here root password. Here we will add root as well as msfadmin, and after that we will add msfadmin, which is the correct username and the correct password, and here we will have world. Hello world. Now let me explain this once again. This is the username and this is the password. This is how we will actually import the file, and we will watch the first part. What we will do is, first of all, we will read the first line of the file, which will be all of this. Then we will split that line where the two dots are, and then we'll use the left side of that line as a username and the right side of that line as a password. So that is the basic idea behind our brute forcer. So let us save this password file. Let us nano ftp brute.py. First of all, use the user share or user bin Python line and import the ftp lib library. So this is all good. Right now, all we want to prompt the user for is the host IP address. So we can do that with simply just typing right here host equals, and then let's use raw underscore input, enter target's IP address. So we prompt the user for this, and this is everything that user needs to specify. Let's put it as a star, so we decorate it a little bit. And all we want to do right now, well, actually, we need to prompt it for one more thing, which is the password list file. So they can actually specify that too. If they don't want to use the one right here, we can prompt that to actually specify the path to the passwords.txt file. So passwd file, let's call it like that, equals raw underscore input, enter passwords file. Or let's specify the username and passwords file. So user slash password file and path. So they know that they need to specify the entire path. Since if that passwords.txt file is not in our current directory, they will need to specify a full path to that file in order for our program to be able to find it. So once we prompt the users this, all we want to do is run the brute login with the arguments as host and the passwd file. Now this brute login function doesn't really exist. We will code it right now. As I said, all we want to do is use the ftp lib to connect and to send the username and passwords, and we want to open the password file and read lines and split the users by the two dots, so everything on the left will be the users and everything on the right will be passwords. Now let's see how we can do that. First of all, let us make our brute login function. Let's call it the same, otherwise this will not work. It takes the input of a host name and it takes the input of a passwd file, so password file and the host name. We specify the two dots right here. And right now, first of all, let us actually open the file that we asked user for, so we can actually open it. Or we can just type here try to open it. So if the user specifies the wrong file, we'll prompt them with the error that that file doesn't exist. So try to, let's make it pf. So this is the variable for our file. Let's open it with the argument passwd file, since that is the variable that we specified right here, and we also sent it to our brute login function, and we want to open that file for reading. So let me just put here comma instead of the dot. We want to read from that file, so we try to open it, except print, we want to print file doesn't exist. So all we have to do after this is actually perform the same for loop that we did in our SSH brute force login. So all we want to do is for each line in our pf file.readlines, so for every line that we read from that file, we want to split it by the two dots. So the username, we can call it like this. The username will be everything, as I said, from the left side. So how we can do that? We can use line.split. And in the brackets, we need to specify where we want to split it. And we want to split it by two dots, as we saw in the passwords.txt file. And in order to specify that the username should be everything on the left, we can just add in the square brackets 0 right here. This basically means that once the line is split, it will make a list of actually all the components that are in that line splitted by two dots. And the first component will be the component from the left, which is labeled as 0, since in Python, as we said, the counting starts from 0. The component on the right, which will be the second and the last component, will be the password, which will be labeled as 1. So we can do that with simply just typing right here, password equals line.split. Split, we want to split it by the same path part, so we split it by the two dots. And we take the second argument, which is the everything on the right. So this is how it should be. And let us print that we are now trying to brute force with this username and password. So print let us use Python 3 since I'm not really sure how this will work with Python 2. So just change everything to be for Python 3. Not really sure how this path right here, since sometimes this split can either work or not depending on the Python. At least I had some problem before with it, but let us just make this a Python 3 program. So just remove the raw underscore input and just type your input as same as here, and all the print statements just put inside the brackets. So simple as that. And what we want to print right here is basically just trying, and then let's add the username plus, let's split it by the slash, and let's add the password, so password. So what this will print is basically something like this: trying admin admin. So it should print something like this. So let us see what else we need to code. All we want to do is actually code the actual logging in right now, so we can try that. So try to log in. We will set the FTP variable to ftplib.ftp from our host name, which is the host IP address, so host name. And right now, our login variable will actually perform the login itself. So FTP login on the username and password. So we close the brackets right here. And in case this works, we want to print that we found the password. So print, we add plus, login succeeded with, and let's add the username plus slash plus password. We close the brackets, we add a space right here, so our program actually doesn't get the error, and we actually want to quit the FTP session right after this, so ftp.quit, we can do it with this, and all we want to do is return from our function, we want to return the username and the password, in case we actually want to use it for some future attacks. But right now, all we want to do is code a good function. So right now, all we are left to specify is actually what happens if it fails. So except, we only want to actually pass, since we don't want to waste the memory and the time for our program. We don't want to execute any code right after that. All we want to do is actually, let me just double check all of this. So we split the line, we print trying this, we perform the connection, and in case the login works, we print that login succeeded with this username and password. Actually, this right here we do not need, so let's just remove it for now on. Let's see right here. All we have to add right now is, in case everything right here finishes, we want to print, for example, if it doesn't find the password and it actually went through the entire list, we want to actually print right here, print. So let us add the double quotes, password not in list, so that we know that there is not password that actually can be used in order to log into that FTP in this passwords list. So let me just double check this once again, or let us just try to run it and see if it works. It probably won't. We will probably have to change some of the things. So let's first of all run it with Python 3, since that is the Python that we used in order to make it. We enter the target's IP address 192.168.1.6, and we press enter. Enter the user password file path. Right now, since our user pass file path is the actual same directory, we only need to do is to specify the name itself. And let's see, trying admin, password not in list. We can see that it didn't find the password. Password not in the list. But let me just see, why does it print this after every try? So let's see what we can do with that. As we can see, we have the same problem as in our SSH brute forcer, that we have the empty space right here. And another problem that we have is this line right here, which is printed out every time we actually try to brute force with a certain username and password. So let us nano ftp brute this line right here. We actually want to tab out. That is the reason we actually want to tab it one line out, since it is actually belonging, if we tab it in, it will belong to this for loop and it will print it every time. So we fix that just by tabbing it out. And in order to actually remove the new line, all we want to do is just type here dot strip from the new line character. Oops. So let me just find this. So here it is. So right now, if we run it once again, let's see what will happen right now. 192.168.1.6 passwords.txt. Trying an admin administrator, trying 123.123 admin. So let's see if it will manage to find it. Trying root password 123, trying root MSFadmin, so the next one. And we can see it actually did work. Login succeeded with MSFadmin, and we get the password not in list. So let us actually edit a little bit this more. So we don't want to actually prompt the users with this if we find the password, since this can be really confusing if you actually use a big file and it actually manages to find the password. We don't actually want to prompt the users at the end that the password is not in list. So let us see how we can do that. We can do that by simply exiting the program right after we find the password. So let us see right now if it will work. So 192.168.1.6 passwords.txt. It will try to brute force, and right now let's see, it should actually quit the program right after we find the password. Now this is going a little bit slow, but better something than nothing. So here it is, but it still tries to actually go further on. Not really sure why. Let us see how this will work. So let me just check this out right here. Not really sure why this didn't work. Maybe if we actually instead return from the function, so let us return the username and password. So if we return, it shouldn't actually print anything afterwards. So let us try once again. Passwords.txt. Let's let this run. The next password should be the password for our account. And we can see right now, if we use the return, it actually returns from the function, so it doesn't actually continue doing it, and we actually get printed login succeeded with MSFadmin/MSFadmin. So we successfully coded our brute forcer. It does work. We can see that we can actually brute force the passwords with our passwords.txt. It separates the list of our passwords for the username and for the password. And that would be about it for this tutorial and for this attack on FTP. Hope you enjoyed it, and in the next section what we'll do is we'll actually try to code some of the tools used for password cracking. Now, for example, if you get a hashed password from anywhere, from a website, SQL database, from a target system, or basically anywhere else, we can see how we can actually run the attack in order to decrypt that password and in order to crack it. So that would be about it for this tutorial. Hope you enjoyed it, and I hope I see you in the next one. Bye!